Okay, let me see your faces now. How much sense do those two make right there? Becky, you just said none. Well, wait until I explain it before you. I've been really pondering what makes a good combination for a man and a woman. Brenda, don't get too upset, hon, that they married so quickly, because Anna and I knew each other one night before I told my mother I was going to marry her. We knew each other 3 months, but I saw her 3 times, I think, in that 3 months. Not very much, that's for sure. And that lasted 52 years. But the Bible is rife with stories that, combinations that did not work. And I want to go to that last reading there, the one in Genesis. Because in this passage, the Lord sees something. The Lord God said, "It is not good. It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper." Some translations use the term helpmeet, helpmate. Doesn't exactly fit the bill here. Because what it's saying, and what the language actually means, is I will make a helper corresponding to him. A helper that fills his needs and he fills her needs. I see the lack of families in our nation, in the world really. I see people not understanding the ramifications of not having both male and female to raise children, to provide a balanced upbringing for a soul, whether it be a girl or a boy. There's something inherently wise in what God did right here in making it necessary for a man and a woman to come together to produce a child. And not just indiscriminately as in animals, because, you can have any male and any female create a life in the animal kingdom. But the animal kingdom is different in a number of ways. That is, that the animal kingdom their survival is based on an instinct that God gives them, that they have from that creation of life. They do not depend on teaching and wisdom the way human beings do. And so when a child is born into this world, a human child, it is extremely important that they get not only a mother's distinct outlook on life, but also that of a father. The girls need the father as much as the boys need the mother. And what I see right now, and what I am certain is happening in our world, in our nation, is that people are not being taught basic human values that come from both male and female who are educated by God. What this says is God made woman for man because a man was incomplete by himself. And the woman was to be a help that is corresponding to him. That doesn't mean it's a one-way gift from one to the other. It means co-responding. Back and forth. A full reciprocal relationship that is described right here. Which means both sides has a tremendous responsibility to fill the voids of the other. So let's go back to what the Lord Jesus said when they asked him about paying taxes. How in the world does that fit? He said, whose inscription is on that coin? They said, well, it's Caesar's. And the Lord did not, he was so good at this. They would think, we got him. And then he would answer in a way that just absolutely destroyed their intentions. Whose inscription's on that coin? Caesar's. Well then, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And give to God what belongs to God. I see in human relationships a mass confusion over what we're supposed to give someone else. Jake, if I took this off like this and just dropped it, what he said. That was indeed what I'm thinking. And what I want us to understand is that nothing else matters. Except that we have the right attitude toward God, and in having that right attitude toward God, we will have the proper attitude toward our fellow man. So one actually fulfills the other, and we can't have the proper attitude toward our fellow unless we have the right attitude toward God. And loving, like he said, and like I've been trying to teach for years, loving does not mean liking. And loving does not mean doing everything that the other person wants us to do. Because there are some things that people want from us that they have no right to. That belongs to God. And you can't give it to them, because how good is it when you go out giving other people's stuff to somebody? I mean, you go to jail for that. You can't give to somebody what belongs to somebody else without their permission. So when we start talking about family relationships, this is the way I would like to deal with anybody who has a problem with a mate. Because usually somebody's asking for something that doesn't belong to them. And when we deal with people with the same rule that we deal with God, we'll give to God what belongs to Him, and we'll give to people what belongs to them. What do they deserve from me? Well, according to God, they deserve my best interests. That's what they deserve. That's what God gives us, is what is in our best interest. Now, let me tell you something. Sometimes that is painful. Sometimes that hurts. My kids, when they were growing up, I'm sorry, I hope there's a statute of limitations from the government on whooping a child. Because they got some whoopings. They got some whoopings, even sometimes that they didn't deserve, because I'm not perfect. And sometimes I thought they needed it and they weren't even guilty. Now I'm saying, kids, I'm sorry. I've already apologized for it before, but I'm sorry. That's the difference between me and God. God doesn't make those kind of mistakes, but let me tell you, sometimes the right thing for someone, sometimes the thing that is love for someone, is the most painful thing. You don't give somebody something that's going to destroy them. That's why my dad didn't give me that 22 when I wanted it. It's why he didn't give me the BB gun when I wanted it. Because he knew what I needed, not what I wanted. He knew what was best for me. Man, that was painful. Everybody else had them. Just to show you why he didn't give me one. We were having dinner one night. This is back in the dragnet days. Dun, dun, dun. Well, there was this knock on the door. And we were all sitting at the dinner table, and my dad got up and went to the door, and there was 2 dragnet men standing there with their hats, and ties and coats and looking real official. Mr. Cope? Yes. Do you have a son named Darryl? Yes, I do. And he turns around and looks at me. Well, we're with the railroad, and we need to talk to you and your son. And I'm about to die in the house because I can hear this conversation. And I'm thinking, what did I do? Well, it wasn't me. One of my friends, well, I re-examine that word after this, but one of my acquaintances came into my yard, laid in my backyard, and shot the windows out of a passenger train with a 22, just like I wanted. And Dad said, no, you're not responsible enough for that yet. Man. Now, that was painful, but I'll tell you what, I know that my dad was not trying to hurt me when he said, no, you can't have that. My dad and I had our differences, but I do know that he did things that were in my best interest. Why else would he make a bicycle for me? Make a whole bicycle, including the wheels, everything on that bicycle except the tires and the seat he made. What a genius. And what an act of love. Now, that was a little bit of love and a little bit of mercy and a little bit of grace. But I know that my dad wanted the best for me. The .22 rifle was not the best. He was going to do the right thing by me. And I am so glad, because you know what? That absolutely saved my bacon in that case, right there. There's so many examples of this kind of thing that I would like to talk about. I want to go straight to the husband and wife thing, okay? I want to go to, 1 Samuel, I think it is, 1 Samuel chapter 25. There's a story of a wife. I've been trying to convince my kids, and this started a long time ago. And it's easy for me to do this because when I was picking a girl, I picked one who was virtuous. But she was also gorgeous. Whew, she was beautiful. So I can do all the preaching in the world about pick one that's good for you. Okay, yeah, Dad, she was gorgeous. And I remember talking to my children about who they're picking. Who they're picking for a mate. And why are you picking that person? And some of the answers just made me crazy. Because I like the way he looks in jeans. Well, let me tell you, in 20 years, he's not going to look like that in jeans. Not the same jeans anyway, I can tell you that. It changes. All that changes. But the character of the person? I've discovered something. Trust me now on this. I know this is not going to make any sense to you if you're 15 and just beginning to think about things. But the spirit of a person has no physical shape. And the love that comes from the spirit of a person has absolutely no bearing on what they look like. Easy to say, right? Easy to say. But I want you to read this story, because read this story with me. If I can see through the mist here. We were talking in class this morning about people's names. Names of people. Here's a man, a rich man, very, very prosperous man, married to a very beautiful, beautiful woman. His name is Nabal. Now that might not mean anything to you, but somebody had some thoughts about this character when they named him, because it means fool. That's what Nabal means. It means fool. I can't believe that that's what his given name was. I think this was an inherited name somewhere along the line because of the way he acted. But let's read this. Excuse me. I need a napkin or a Kleenex or something here. I'll be sniffling all through this. Thank you, Mom. This is a story of David. Starts out with Nabal and Abigail. But really the story is about David, and David was running from Saul, and David was having a hard time because the people loved him, but there were forces trying to destroy David before he ever took the throne. It says there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel, verse 2 of chapter 25. And the man was very rich, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. And it came about while he was shearing his sheep at Carmel. Now, the man's name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. The woman was intelligent and beautiful in appearance, but the man was harsh and evil in his dealings. I don't know why it says this, but it says, and he was a Calebite. He was a descendant of Caleb, one of the most righteous men that the Old Testament tells us about. He said that David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So David sent 10 young men. Now remember, God has already told him he's king. He's just waiting for Saul to die. And David has a very, very responsible view of Saul's reign as king. Many times David had the chance to snuff his life out and take the throne early. But David's response to that was always this respect that he had for Saul and the position he had as king. David's response was always this: I will not lift my hand against the Lord's anointed. Let the Lord do something with him. I'm not going to do it. So David sent 10 of his men. He said to the young men, go up to Carmel and visit Nabal, visit the fool. Somehow I think there was a different name in here before this. Visit this guy and greet him in my name. Tell him I'm out here. Thus you shall say, have long life, peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have. Peace was a big word among the Hebrews. That was what we want for ourselves and for everybody else. This is their version of love right here. I want your life to be the way it ought to be. Isn't that what we want for ourselves? Isn't that loving ourselves, asking for peace, tranquility, for things to be right in our lives? No turmoil, please. Please don't give me any hardship. Let things be the way they should be. So David's asking for that, for this man. He says, now I've heard that you have shearers. They're out here collecting the reason for having sheep. They're getting the wool off of them. This is why he's a rich man. I heard that you have shearers. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we have not insulted them. I'm not quite sure what is the basis of that word, insulted. We haven't been hard on these guys. Nor have they missed anything all the days that we were in Carmel. We haven't taken any of your sheep or anything like that. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore, let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we have come on a festive day. Please give whatever you find in your hand to your servants and to your son, David. Notice how David puts himself, as king now, he puts himself under this man's care. Your son, David. When David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all the words in David's name, and they waited. But Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? Jesse was a shepherd as well, although probably not as well off as Nabal. There are many servants today who are breaking away from their masters. He finds no respect in David at all. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I have slaughtered for my shearers and give it to those whose origin I do not know? This guy's, he has absolutely no respect for the future king of Israel. I mean, he's treating him like he's some cur dog. He has no respect whatsoever for David or anybody with David, even though he knows the story of David. Obviously, he knows the story of David. He knows who he is and what he's all about. Because he says, anybody can rebel against their master. So David's young men retraced their way and went back, and they came and told him according to all these words. And David said to his men, okay, gird on your swords. Each man girded on his sword, and David also girded on his sword. That means they loaded up. If this was today, they grabbed the rifles and the ammo and jumped on their ATVs or something. Started to say horses, but that's not today. He girded on his sword, and about 400 men went up behind David while 200 stayed with the baggage. David's got an entourage of about 600 guys. That's a formidable force, a formidable force. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife. Now remember, she's married to this man. He has control, and in this society, the women needed to toe the mark, or it could be disastrous for them. One of the young men told Abigail, behold, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, and he scorned them. Yet the men were very good to us. And we were not insulted, nor did we miss anything as long as we went about with them while we were in the fields. They really just took care of us. They were a wall to us, both night and day, and all the time that we were with them tending the sheep. We didn't have to worry. Nobody was going to bother us. Man, I'm getting some competition this morning, huh? And I want you to see something here. I'm going to have to change my wardrobe. I'm going to try a bow tie. This little guy just makes my...
And he quieted as soon as you held him.
I know. That's the magic. Sorry, baby. You know, what we're talking about here is so important. That little guy, I want absolutely the best for him and for all of my children, my grandchildren, he's the great grandchildren. That's beginning to scare me. That means, Jan, I don't have much time left, buddy. I am running out of time. Running out of time to put the ship right, to get things going in the right direction. But while Jake was talking, I was thinking about the way he presented that, and it was perfect. You know what the word kindness is? Where it came, yeah. Betty knows. Genesis chapter 1. After your own kind. Treating them. You know, Jake was asking, how do we love somebody like we love our wife and kids? If you extract the emotion from it, like he was saying, it can't be an emotional response. I don't want to kiss some dude that's trying to kill my kids. I'm not going to kiss him. Unless it's, like the mafia did. That might be. But what we're talking about is doing what's right for people. And really, when you stop and think about it, nothing else matters. Doing what's right, because there's only one source of right and wrong, and that's our Father, who determines for us what is right and what's not right. I can give to anybody and have to give to anybody what is right. I don't have to give them what doesn't belong to them, what belongs to Him. So I want to look at all of these cases, examining that factor. Giving what is valid and what is right to give them, what belongs to them, and recognizing when it's not. Here's what happens here. This woman, Abigail, married to this jerk whose name now is Fool, and it says, Abigail hurried and took 200 loaves of bread and 2 jugs of wine and 5 sheep already prepared and 5 measures of roasted grain and 500 clusters of raisins and 200 cakes of figs and loaded them on donkeys. What did David's men come and ask for? Help us however you can. What are they asking for? Anything that they don't have a right to? They're not forcing them to do anything. They just ask, can you help us out? Now, if Nabal had been understanding what was going on in the kingdom and knew that Saul was on his way out and David was on his way in, if he had any respect for God's authority, he would have respected David. That's the right thing to do. So here's this woman who is caught married to this fool. she says to the young men, "Go on before me, behold, I'm coming after you." But she did not tell her husband, Nabal. She didn't tell the fool. Does she have a right to do that? She's married to this man. This is her stuff too. Does she have a responsibility to do what he tells her to do here? Or does she have a responsibility to do what God tells her to do? Now, it doesn't have to be a direct voice. "Abigail, take this food and go give it to David." Because she's been taught what they're supposed to do for people who are in need. That's why the law of Moses had these rules, like you don't go through and take more than a first crop. You leave it as gleanings for the people that need it. You don't do the corners of your field. You leave it for those who need it. They knew that was the law. That was what God expected of them. So when she does what she does here, she is righteous. And she's unafraid. I am amazed at the wisdom and the courage of some of these Bible women. I had one like that myself. Because I tell you what, my woman loved me and she respected me, but she would not do anything wrong for me. I love that about her. I can always count on what she said to be her understanding of what he wants. That's what she owed me. That's how she filled my void. That's how Abigail is filling this idiot's void. By doing what he should have done in the first place, and doing it really to save his life. Because when we read on down, we find out that's exactly what it's about. David did not strap on his sword to go and kiss him on the cheek. I can tell you that right now. It came about as she was riding on a donkey and coming down by the hidden part of the mountain, that behold, David and his men were coming down toward her. So she met them. Now David said, "Surely in vain I have guarded all that this man has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed, and all that belonged to him was returned, and he's returned evil for evil to me, evil for good. May God do so to the enemies of David, and more also, if by morning I leave so much as one male of anything that belongs to him." When Abigail saw David, she hurried and dismounted from her donkey and fell on her face before David and bowed herself to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Oh, on me alone, my Lord, be the blame." Wow. She's taking the blame for this idiot. And she says, "And please let your maidservant speak to you, and listen to the words of your maidservant. Please do not let my Lord pay attention to this worthless man." She knows. I just about guarantee you this was an arranged marriage. I don't think she picked this idiot. Because she was intelligent. Because of her character here. She wants to do the right thing. Even for him, even though he's such a fool. "But I, your maidservant, did not see the young men of whom my Lord sent. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives," this is her swearing by God, "as the Lord lives and as your soul lives," she kind of stretched that a little bit, and she's swearing by David now too. "Since the Lord has restrained you from shedding blood and from avenging yourself by your own hand. And now let your enemies and those who seek evil against my Lord be as Nabal. Let them be fools. Now let this gift which your maidservant has brought be given to the young men who accompanied my Lord. Please forgive the transgression of your maidservant. You know, this reminds me of Daniel. When Daniel prayed to God because his people were in captivity, because they deserved to be there, Daniel took the blame. It's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do. Stand in the way. It's what Moses did for those worthless people. He stood in between them and God. Caring about them is the key. Praying for people because it's the right thing to do. Because God has done even more than that for us, and we, out of gratitude, turn around and do the same thing. It's not forcing us to do it. It's not a law that if you break it, you're going to hell. It's understanding what love is all about. It's understanding love the way Jesus manifested love by doing it for people that were his enemies. Oh, boy, that's a hard lesson to learn. But we can learn it. We can learn it. I want you to go to Peter on your own time. I want you to go to 2 Peter chapter 1 and look at what Marshall Keeble called the stairway to heaven. He started out with, to your faith supply moral excellence, to your moral excellence knowledge, to your knowledge self-control, to your self-control perseverance, and to your perseverance godliness. The right attitude toward God. Wow. That late in that list is godliness. Having the proper respect toward God. And the next one is brotherly kindness. Brotherly kindness. Caring about people the way I care about that little guy. I call him little dude. It is so rewarding to me to have my own kind lay on my chest and be happy. Be safe. Have nothing threatening him. That's a goal that I have in my life, is to maintain that for him and for his mama and for all who are mine. But somehow I have to stretch that beyond mine and treat everybody else the way I treat mine. That is, do the right thing for them. That is brotherly kindness, and the next step up, which is the crowning achievement, Christian love. I can't do Christian love until I do the kindness. Man, what an instruction book we have. You know, we can't follow the instructions without opening the book. And I am famous in every other realm of this world. Who needs those stinking instructions? But I know I need these. I know I need these instructions. Won't you join me? Won't you join me in reading them, studying them, understanding what the next step is and how we can be God's people, be the kind of people that God smiles on and says what he did to Daniel, oh man of high esteem. That means God admired Daniel. I'd love that. Got a song for us, John? Come while we stand and sing the song that John has for us.